Hey guys, it is me, Mitch Crafter, and today I would just like to make a short video explaining my graphic settings for the game BodyCam. And I would just like to say that I've seen many other people review their own graphics and display settings, and I would like to go through to clarify a few things because I feel like there's not a very large basis on what the right video settings are, and I would just like to output my own thoughts and feelings of this. So, starting off, I just go full screen. Some people like to do borderless, but the reason I do full screen is because I'm using a wide screen display. So I just kind of have to do full screen or else it just messes things up. I'm at 16 and 9 as you should be. The default resolution for display resolution for me is 2560 by 1080, but I like to play on 1920 by 1080p because it does stretch the film a little bit, and having stretched res is actually very important for this game. I want to explain that because if you have stretched res, it's a lot easier to see targets, and I actually noticed that it makes the game a little bit brighter. Maybe that's just me, but I feel like it just makes everything a little bit easier to see and focus on, and you could see where people are in the corners of your screen, so that's very helpful. And then I like to turn lock FPS to unlocked because you don't really know what the cap of your FPS will be in this game. It's hard to say. Turn off VSync. Make sure VSync is off. You do not want VSync at all and on. And I just turn off all of my colorblind settings. You don't want that because unless you're colorblind. But that's all I'm gonna say for that. So I'm not using HDR. If you're not using an HDR display, then you could still use the HDR display profile, but just make sure that HDR is off. And I turn on explicit gamma mapping as my display profile because it actually makes it just makes everything a bit brighter. And then I just use HDR color space as record because that's just the best default settings for anything. It's just the best setting in my opinion. And then I don't mess with any of these. Make sure your HDR UR brightness is all the way maxed out because you don't want to have you don't want to have a low lighting. That's all I'm gonna say for that. Then if you go over to graphics over here, I do use AMD FS3 because it does actually help with FPS quite a bit. I just turn it to quality. It really doesn't make a noticeable difference when you turn it to quality, but as soon as you start turning it up to balanced performance, ultra performance, your game will look a lot more blurry. So just keep it at quality. That's my advice. I have the AMD FSR3 frame generator on because it does increase performance quite a bit, and you can't really tell a noticeable negative impact. So I like to keep that on. That way you don't really have to mess with these and you get more performance. And then once we go to the graphics setting, I keep global illumination at low because it's way too laggy when you turn that up and you just don't need it. I turn anti-aliasing to high. That way you could clearly see the difference between an object and a player. I like to turn the viewing distance to near because, well, this is actually controversial. You could change this however you want. It will create more lag, but if you think that you need a higher view distance, then sure, turn it up. I don't believe that I need a high view distance. I could see very clearly enemies in the distance, so I just like keeping it at at near. So you could adjust that based on your preference. The texture I like to keep at high. That way the game just looks nice. I keep shadow at high because I want the game to look nice. I turn effects to low because these will absolutely destroy the FPS on your game. You want to keep them low and reflections are also low because let's be honest, you're not going to take the time to look at reflections when you're shooting at other people. It's just not necessary. And then foliage, I keep it high because when you're playing on the map in the woods map, you will get a lot of lag for turning it up to ultra. And then for the shading quality, I like to keep that at medium just so that you have a balanced field of shadows and the shading quality, just the look of the game in general. Keep that at medium, or you could turn it up to high, but it will create lag. And then post processing, I keep it at low. You could turn it up. I like to keep it at low because again, I don't want to get less FPS. And then I have grain off. I have sharpness off. You could turn this to low or off depending on what you think. I have motion blur to epic at the moment. I don't know why I do, but you could just put that to low. And that's all my video settings. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys on the next one.